What's up, guys? It's On and Off Football, and the NFL playoffs is only 5 weeks away. And I'm here to tell you how the Packers are going to get into the playoffs and what their playoff chances are right now. So, currently, after that unfortunate loss against the Detroit Lions on Thursday Night Football, the Packers are now sitting at 9-4 when they could have been 10-3. Also competing for the division if the Lions were 11-2. Unfortunately, that is not the case. The Lions went up 12-1, and the Packers dropped to 9-4. But the Packers are not out of the playoffs, not even close to being out of the playoffs, because they currently hold the 6th seed and hold a 98% chance of making the playoffs. So the Packers, they're looking good right now. They played a really tough game against the Lions, lost by a game-winning field goal. And the Packers are not out of it. They're scary. They're a dangerous team that could be very good in the playoffs, could make a run. But so far, the Packers are not clinched. In order for the Packers to clinch, there is a scenario where the Packers can clinch in Week 15, but it is highly unlikely, so do not... Just take it with a grain of salt. So what would have to happen, is this is very unlikely because this has never happened this season, is a tie between the Rams and the 49ers on Thursday Night Football, which is unlikely, but anything is possible. And we also need the Falcons to lose to the Raiders. And, of course, the Packers are going to have to beat the Seahawks. If that happens, if they tie, the Packers win, and the Falcons lose, the Packers are clinched at 10-4. If they lose every game from here on out, it does not matter because they clinch. The lowest seed they could get is the 7th seed, but the Packers do not want the 7th seed. The Packers definitely want to be playing either the Seahawks, Falcons, or Bucks. That's the one thing I see happening. I don't see anything else happening. I don't see them getting the 7th seed. I don't think they lose out. It's actually a very big possibility that the Packers win out. If they do win out, they stand at 13-4. If everything else goes their way, say every team they need to loses, you have the Giants doesn't matter. That tie happens, that's already a clinch. Say that doesn't happen, Packers do win this week. Say the Rams win, the Packers win, then the Packers do lose next week. The Packers lose in 2 weeks, and then they lose to the Bears in 3 weeks. They are also going to be 10-7. So the Packers cannot afford to get the 7th seed because I wouldn't want to see the Packers playing the Eagles at their home in the first round of the playoffs. That is not ideal. I think the most ideal thing for the Packers is either play whatever team makes it out of the West or whatever team that makes it out of the South in the NFC. So, currently the Packers do sit at a 98% chance, which is a very good chance of making the playoffs. Packers are still technically in the division battle, but it is highly unlikely that they win the division. They would need the Vikings to potentially lose against the Bears, and then they would have the Lions lose to the Bills. That would drop the Lions to 12-2. The Packers would go up to 10-4. Then the Packers have to win out if they want to win the division. Packers somehow, even the Lions could afford to lose one game if the Packers, because the Packers actually they can't afford to lose one game. They would need the Lions to lose out, which is not going to happen. So if the Lions lose out and the Packers win all of their games, the Vikings need to lose the Lions, which is possible. Or not the Vikings need to beat the Lions. Packers need to beat the Vikings. They get the 2nd seed. It's very possible that the Packers take the Vikings spot. Vikings need to lose to Seahawks. Lions need to lose to Bears. Lions also need to lose They have to lose out. Then the Packers would also have to have, if they want the first seed, which is also very unlikely at this point. That game on Thursday night against the Lions was extremely important for the Green Bay Packers because it's a lot of playoff implications, but not only that, it had the division implications. The Vikings, that I say they could lose this week against the Bears. They'll probably lose the Seahawks next week. The Packers are playing the Vikings week 17, and then they play the Lions. I think the Vikings could go 1-3, or they could go 0-4. It's very possible. They're a good team, but there's definitely teams that could beat them. They would. Packers would also need the Eagles to lose some games, like the Commanders. They would get the first seed, which is highly unlikely. But you never know. Packers need to win out as well. If the Packers don't win out, then they cannot get the first seed. But yeah, that's really the chances for the Packers. I wouldn't worry too much about that game on Thursday. It was a very important game, but the Packers have a very important game, maybe a more important game, probably the most important game of the season. Probably the second most important game before the Vikings. The Vikings game on week 17 is extremely important. Extremely important because that's a lot of seeding. And I expect that game to get flexed. I don't think that game stays a 1 o'clock game. But yeah, that's definitely the Packers scenario right now. How I see it is I think the Packers actually can win out. I think the Packers win out because the Saints don't have Derek Carr. Vikings are a team to beat. Bears. And then the Vikings start losing. Say they lose against the Bears this week. Swap with the Vikings, play the Bucks. And then they could lose to the Seahawks, but I don't think they're going to lose to the Seahawks. It doesn't matter, though, because if the Packers win out and the Vikings just lose one, they take their spot. So, yeah. Packers and Vikings, it's a big race between them for seeding at this point. Packers just need to win one more game. And then we'll see how the playoffs look. I think it's going to be around like a 99% chance. If the Packers win this week against the Seahawks, it is a 99% chance. Because the Packers play the Saints, and the Saints are a completely destroyed team. They're decimated with injuries. So, Packers win those two, they clinch the playoffs. And yeah, that's really it. That's the chances for the Packers. They have a 98% chance standing right now. And they play the Seahawks in Seattle on Sunday Night Football. A very important game for both teams. One has a division to try to get, and one has a lot of seeding chances. But yeah, if you guys find this video helpful, please let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, go Pack.